Have you ever wondered what could drive a seemingly sweet daughter to plot the murder of her entire family? In this video, we'll uncover the chilling story of a young girl who turned against her own blood, and by the end, you'll know the warning signs that could save your loved ones from a similar fate. If you skip this, you might miss out on the crucial insights that could mean the difference between life and death. It was a quiet night in the small town of Albert, Texas, when a frantic 911 call shattered the stillness. First responders raced to the scene, expecting to find a man in desperate need of help. But what they discovered was far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. The man, Terry Caffey, was indeed clinging to life, riddled with gunshot wounds, but the real nightmare was the tragedy he had just witnessed. His entire family had been brutally murdered. The Caffey family had been the picture-perfect representation of a wholesome suburban life, grounded in Christian values. Terry, a pastor, and his wife Penny were devoted parents to their three children. Their 16-year-old daughter Erin was the eldest, followed by their sons 13-year-old Matthew and 8-year-old Tyler. The Caffeys were deeply involved in their church, where Erin often sang in the choir, a voice so powerful that it moved congregations to tears. But behind the scenes, Erin was going through a rebellious phase, one that would ultimately lead her down a dark and dangerous path. At the center of this rebellion was her 18-year-old boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson. From the moment Erin introduced Charlie to her parents, there was something off. Terry vividly remembered the first time Charlie came over for dinner. He had greeted him warmly, saying, "You must be Charlie." But instead of the polite response one might expect, Charlie had coldly retorted, "And you are?" It was a small moment, easily brushed aside at the time, but it left an unsettling impression. On the night Terry dragged his bullet-ridden body to his neighbor's house, he had witnessed horror straight out of a nightmare. The Caffeys were sound asleep when the door to Terry and Penny's room was suddenly flung open, followed by a series of deafening bangs, gunshots. Bullets tore through the room where they had been peacefully sleeping just moments before. Both Terry and Penny were shot multiple times. As Terry lay there, paralyzed by pain, he recognized the shooter. It was Charlie, Erin's boyfriend. And he wasn't alone. With him was his friend, Charles Wade. The two were armed not only with guns, but also with two large swords. As Terry lay helpless, he heard his son Matthew's voice cry out, "Why are you doing this, Charlie?" before more gunshots echoed through the house. Wade had shot Matthew in the face. The swords, gruesome and unnecessary for their deadly mission, only served to underline the profound evil of their intent. The swords weren't needed to carry out the killings. They were overkill, a chilling display of the pleasure they took in the act, turning a simple murder into a sadistic ritual. At just 8 years old, Tyler Caffey, terrified and trembling, hid in the corner of a closet. Tragically, Charlie and Wade discovered him hiding in the closet. What happened next was unimaginable cruelty. Both men took turns stabbing the young boy to death with their swords, but the horror didn't end there. Charlie, driven by a twisted need to ensure the job was done, returned to Erin's parents' bedroom. There, he plunked the sword into Penny's neck, nearly decapitating her to ensure she was dead. Satisfied that they had killed everyone, the pair set the house ablaze and sped away into the night. But they never anticipated that Terry would survive. Throughout the carnage, Terry drifted in and out of consciousness, but his will to leave pushed him to crawl out of the burning house and somehow make it to his neighbors for help. In the small, tight-knit community of Halber, news spread fast, and once Terry named the killer, it didn't take long for the police to close in on Charlie. Chief Deputy Kurt Fisher knew Charlie personally. He was a friend of Fisher's son. On his way to the crime scene, Fisher spotted Charlie's car parked outside Matthew Wade's single-wide trailer. So later when Fisher went to see Matthew, he led the police inside, though he claimed he couldn't recall if Charlie had stayed there that night. Inside, the officers were greeted by a mess of empty beer cans and dirty laundry. Wade and his girlfriend were abruptly awakened by the officers searching for Charlie. As Fisher moved through the cluttered trailer, his eyes caught something suspicious. A blanket hung over a doorway. When he pulled it back, he found Charlie lying on a mattress, a gun lying ominously by his side. Knowing Charlie had just massacred an entire family, Fisher had to be cautious. Who's to say Charlie wouldn't grab the gun and start shooting? Fisher ordered Charlie to show his hands, then took him outside to inform him of the horrifying events at the cafe home the night before. Charlie, ever defiant, denied any involvement, claiming he had gotten drunk and passed out. But as officers searched the trailer, cracks began to appear in his story. When they went back inside to retrieve the shirt and shoes for him, they noticed blood splatters on his clothes. As they took him away in the squad car, firefighters were still battling the flames that engulfed the cafe home. The search of the trailer revealed more damning evidence: a purse with Erin's driver's license, shell casings, ammunitions, and even a used condom. As an officer sifted through the heaps of clutter, something blonde caught his eye, a pile of hair peeking out from beneath a pile. At first, he thought it was just a doll, but when he grabbed it, he realized it was something far more chilling. It was a teenage girl caught up in a fetal position, her back turned to him. The officer ordered her to stand up and show her hands, but she didn't respond. Recognition flashed in his mind. It was Erin, the girl from the driver's license. Immediately, Erin began asking where she was, feigning confusion and claiming she couldn't remember how she had gotten there. Erin Caffey sat at the police station, spinning a tale of confusion and victimhood. She claimed she had been drugged the night before, her memories hazy and fragmented. She remembered flashes of a fire, two men dressed in black, wielding swords and drinking something strange. After that, everything went dark. The officers, moved by her apparent trauma, expressed sympathy for Erin. They praised her for the strength she had displayed in the face of such an unimaginable tragedy, the loss of nearly her entire family. But as the investigation unfolded, a much darker truth began to surface. Terry Caffey, Erin's father, had no doubts about Charlie's motive. He believed that Charlie's rampage was driven by a desire for revenge after Penny had forbidden Erin from seeing him. The man was greatly mistaken, and the events we'll soon get into prove this. However, we would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Charlie, however, had a different version of events. He claimed that his actions weren't fueled by rage, but by a twisted sense of devotion. He hadn't slaughtered the Caffey family for revenge. He did it because Erin had asked him to. At the station, Charlie was surprisingly cooperative, almost eager to talk. Although he initially refused to name his accomplice, the pressure eventually got to him, and he revealed that Charles Wade had been involved. In truth, Wade had been all too willing to help his friend carry out the murders. He had been promised $2,000 by Erin and Charlie, money that was supposedly hidden in a locked box in the cafe home. Wade, desperate and easily swayed, had agreed to the plan, intending to use the money to pay court fees in a bid to gain custody of his daughter. During their interrogations, the boys were shockingly forthcoming about their heinous acts, even leading the police to the evidence they had discarded under a bridge in the river. According to the boys, Wade's girlfriend, Bobby Johnson, had driven Erin, Wade, and Charlie to the cafe home. Wade claimed that Bobby was unaware of the sinister plan, but she insisted on coming along. However, their first attempt to enter the cafe home was thwarted when the family dog began barking loudly, scaring them away. But Erin was not about to let a plan fall apart. She repeatedly called Charlie in the late hours of the night, pressuring him to return and finish the job. She promised to bring the dog inside to avoid raising any alarms, but Charlie and Wade were still hesitant. To ease their nerves, Erin snuck out to join them, and Bobby drove the group to the cemetery where they spent an hour meticulously planning the murders of the Caffey family. Charlie later recounted that he had tried multiple times to convince Erin to run away instead, but she was resolute. She didn't just want her parents dead, she wanted her younger brothers killed too, describing them as annoying and troublesome. According to the plan, Wade was supposed to kill Erin's brothers while Charlie murdered her parents. When Matthew tried to fight Charlie off, Wade immediately shot him. Charlie claimed that he couldn't bear to murder Tyler, though he did stab him once. In a later interview, a detective questioned Brandon Primer, a friend of all 4 people involved. Brandon had voluntarily come forward to share what he knew. Brandon told the detective that Charlie had admitted to pulling the trigger on Erin's parents, but insisted he couldn't kill the children. Charlie described how Wade had to finish off Erin's parents, while Charlie went outside, unable to carry out the rest of the murders. When asked if he had ever discussed the murders with Charlie before they happened, Brandon revealed that about a month prior, Charlie had mentioned that Erin was considering killing her parents. Brandon had dismissed it at the time, thinking it was just talk. Charlie and Erin had ample time to demonstrate genuine remorse while planning these murders. There was a significant period during which they could have recognized the horror of what they were about to do. When a detective asked if there had been any indications that something was amiss, Brandon, a friend of theirs, recalled seeing Charlie and Bobby just days before the murders. He described them as happy as bluebirds, showing no signs of gruesome acts that they were planning. The same could be said about Charlie when Brandon saw him earlier, happy-go-lucky and carefree. Wade recalled how elated Erin was when they returned to the car with a packed suitcase. Once she confirmed her family was dead, she gave them the combination of a lockbox containing money. They also took about $400 from Terry and Penny's wallets before setting fire to the house with pocket lighters, watching it go up in flames as they drove away in Bobby's car. Erin's reaction was chilling, as she expressed immense relief after the event. Wade described her as being as happy as a child on Christmas morning. Afterwards, they went to a river where they disposed of Erin's suitcase, the swords, and the bloody boots, planning to return for them later. Bobby then dropped Erin and Charlie off at Matthew Wade's trailer, where they celebrated their victory by sleeping together. While Wade, Charlie, and Bobby's stories match up, Erin continued to claim she didn't remember anything, despite the toxicology report showing no drugs in her system and no signs of smoke inhalation. Meanwhile, Terry, against all odds, was recovering in the hospital. When detectives visited him, he asked about his daughter's involvement in the murders. Their response, "Her involvement was great," left him devastated. The thought that his sweet little girl could be responsible for such an evil act was unbearable. When Terry was told he could come home, he broke down again, realizing he had nothing left, no home, no family. He stayed with his sister, living out the nightmare that had become his reality. Terry, despite everything, continued to visit Erin at a juvenile detention center. However, he couldn't ask her why she had committed such an heinous act because their conversations were recorded and could be used against her in court. Though Terry had seen all the evidence, he still couldn't believe his daughter was capable of such evil. Erin was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 25 years for capital murder on January 2nd, 2009. Charlie and Wade received life without the possibility of parole, and Bobby was sentenced to 40 years. To this day, Terry still visits Erin and even fights for her early release. Terry believes Erin didn't think Charlie would actually follow through, but what he doesn't know is Charlie wasn't the first person Erin had tried to convince to kill her family. An ex-boyfriend revealed that Erin had asked him to carry out the same crime, but he refused, thinking she was crazy. Since the murders, Terry has remarried and had another biological child. He and his new wife also adopted 3 children. He founded the Forgiveness Project and wrote a book. As of 2021, Erin is 29 years old and will not be eligible for parole for another 30 years. Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade will spend the rest of their lives in prison, paying for their cruel actions. So tragic, but what do you think about all this? Please let us know in the comments and stay safe.